Hi, I'm Michael Newrock and welcome to the market analysis video for 2017, August 28. It's open of market just a few hours now. Not a lot's been happening. We had a bit of a gap uh, over the weekend to our favor in the trades that I looked at over the series of last week. So we'll just continue where we left off and see how we go. At this stage, I am hesitant to look at any new opportunities, but things can change pretty dramatically in the world of trading. However, on Mondays, it's usually a good idea to, let the dust settle, let the market find its own balance. As the saying goes, water finds its own balance, and so too with the market as it opens on Monday. So let's have a look. We're on gold, XAU USD, currently still continuing its upward move. We had a bit of a false move to the downside here and a swing that eventually eventuated into this new upward trend trade. There's 6 out of 6 high time frames pointing up. The risk reward is only about 1-to-1 here from entry to just below the slow moving average or gray moving average. And just about 1-to-1 or a little less. So not really the ideal place that I would like to look at a trade. Maybe a correction. If you are going to look at this, then I would suggest to lock in some profits, or at least move it to break even as quickly as possible. Okay, so this is the daily chart. So you can see it's been moving upwards since end of June. And on the weekly chart, we can see that we've entered a new trend trade to the upside just recently. And, it hasn't really moved much. So we've got a bit of a resistance at this point. If it breaks above, say, 1300, which is this last price, and also a psychological number, then it has the opportunity potentially to go right up to that previous high around 1375, and that would be still pretty reasonable in compared to Bitcoin, for example, which is currently around 4,300, amazingly, but extremely volatile. So watch this space. So back to the 4-hour, and possible scalp, but there's a higher risk involved and not as great a reward unless you get a break, and then you can start writing it as a daily or even as a weekly. Okay, so Euro, this one has been a great trade. It was actually taken as a 15-minute, which is why you can't see the arrow here where the trade was taken. And I was at the time just looking for opportunities in shorter time frames. The 4-hour is typically the time frame that I trade, but I will look at the shorter time frames to look for entries if there's nothing existing on the 4-hour. Anyway, it turned out really nice, and since it was in reasonable profit around here, I actually switched it over to the 4-hour. I think it might have been around here. Anyway, since then we've had 2 swings with this last swing, and the first trade's been taken out and actually back over here. But the second trade has gone fantastic, and it's currently around 150 pips. So we've seen a high of just under 200 pips. We'll see how this one pans out. It's pretty close, but if it survives this, then there could be more upward movement. Now, as far as entry, then I wouldn't recommend chasing a trade that's already moved, so there's no trade in it now. However, if it were to correct to the downside, then see how high this MACD is. Then, if it fades back down and then there's a swing, say at around maybe 1850 thereabouts, if it goes this low, or even 1870, swing to the upside with a nice MACD swing could could see an opportunity to get in on another long trade now. It's 5 out of 6 of the high time frames are pointing up, so that's the position that I continue to hold. K pound. This was always running a little slower than the euro. It's since alerted as a trend trade to the upside. So, it's really tempting to get in at this level, mainly because the reward to risk is very big. So in this one, the stop would have been around 70 pips with a potential of, around 380, 390 pips. So that's over 5 to 1 reward factor, or in other words, a 1 to 5 risk to reward ratio. So it's already been failing just the last 2 bars, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to continue to. So maybe a swing to the upside, or even a manual based trade with go long command, and that could, there's an opportunity there. But for now, I would be wary of how price is running. So let's just drop down a little bit down to the 1 hour to start off with. And you can see it opened the market here and it's just been drifting down. So maybe even a 1 hour as a swing could be, the time frame to look at. If we drop down further to the 30-minute, nothing apparent there. Let's have a look at the 15-minute. So I think this trade may have some way to go. If it does, then wait for the dust to settle, and maybe look at it on either a 1 hour swing trade. Looks, but well, yeah, like if it swung up here again, looking at that risk to reward, about 25 pips and 35 pips to the upside. Moving averages are strongly moving upward. So the 1 hour maybe, or as a manual 4 hour. But I would like to see this downward movement fall before I got in. So maybe keep an eye on that 1 hour and that 15-minute even to see, and then you can switch it back to 2 or 4 hour and trade it on a manual command entry, and then have it managed after that automatically, of course. Okay, so euro pound continuing to go up, and it's being held by the euro, and the euro is being held by the euro pound. So nothing's changing there. It's really already very much moved to the upside. So again, looking for an opportunity maybe in a swing, but there's some time to wait for that to happen on a 4 hour. Maybe look at it on the shortest time frame that I would really consider, 15-minute, and there's nothing there. So I'm on the sidelines for this trade. Currently, it's just moved way too high. And pound Swiss, very much the mirror opposite almost of the euro pound. So I haven't seen anything on either of these pairs for quite some time as far as a decent trade. Aussie, this is interesting. We were looking at it going to the downside last week, but then it consolidated and has since flipped up. So it is now 4 out of 6 high time frames are pointing up. I'm a little hesitant on this particular pair. Let's have a look at it on the daily. Yeah, it is looking like a technical crossover here, but the day still needs to close, and it's just begun, and the trend follower is still red. So, this is a bit of an ambiguous one. If we look at the weekly, then it gives us more of an idea that it has actually been going upward for quite a few weeks and been going sideways pretty much, if you take the average there, for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 or 6 weeks. So I don't personally see this as tempting enough. This could be a resistance level over here as well. So what we're looking at here of this last high achieved, just a touch above these 2 points here and a little below this. So, maybe a swing could be a better entry point. If it fades and then gives a strong swing, then, that could be worth considering. And the market may be ready to bust through this resistance. If it starts failing and then goes bi-directional, then I would maybe look at how it's going to pan out over the next few bars to see really, because it could just meander along here for a while. This move just isn't strong enough, and the price now staying within this move that triggered it. So for my mind, it's not one that I'm really interested in. This is a little bit more interesting on the basis that, and I know a couple of you in the chat room were looking at this as a support, and it has looked like it's acted as support. We've only got the trend follower to change to green on this. 4 out of 6 of the high time frames pointing up, and small risk in this one. And to the recent highs, it looks fairly reasonable. So you've only got about 25-30 pips on a 4-hour, which is not a lot, as the stop loss, and you've got around 90 pips for the recent highs here. So that's almost a 4 reward factor or multiplier. So this could be an opportunity, but I wouldn't want to take it when it's just consolidating like this. And you can see the MACD is really flattening out, and the stochastic is also flat as well. So it'd have to be a decent move for this to look more promising. Okay, Aussie Kiwi, it's continuing to go up. There's no trade here in my mind. If the Kiwi does start going up, then you'll see the Aussie Kiwi going down. That'll be a good confirmation. If you're looking at that Kiwi long trade, have a look at how the Aussie Kiwi is going. If it's going down, that's going to give a little bit more support to your Kiwi trade. And then we might have a flip-flop scenario where the Aussie goes down, but that's a little bit hard to tell at this stage again. So Kiwi looking like a more reasonable opportunity, but let's see how it goes. Dollar CAD continuing to go down. It had this nice big rally to the upside, and then since then it's just been pummeled. We are coming up to support here, just based on price on this 4-hour, without looking at it, any deeper than as far as other time frames. So, I wouldn't personally be looking at shorts on this. Back here, this is a classic case of the swing trades now just being so far away, or too far away, from the origination of the trend, which is back here on this crossover. This one here was a great swing trade, and these two were getting a little dicey, but turned out really well. I guess it wasn't too far, a little bit too far for my liking, particularly this fourth one here. But right now we're a little too far for my liking. If it starts moving upward and we see this changing to bidirectional, then the early alert is on for if it continues to go that way, and it might be another opportunity to go long. But at this stage, I'm on the sidelines. Dollar Swiss has had this nice big move to the downside. I was thinking back here that it was going to rally, but in this case I was wrong. And the Dollar Swiss it's an interesting pair because it's pretty much the reverse correlation of the euro. That's the EUR USD. So the euro has just been moving higher and higher. So for that reason alone, it's not surprising that the Dollar Swiss did have this final collapse. So I'm really I'm not sure about this one. If the euro continues to move up, then maybe look for a correction, and then look for a swing trade to the downside. 6 out of 6 are pointing down, so I really can't question that any further at this stage, and look for an opportunity to the downside for any swings, but you'd want to get a nice correction. MACD is fairly low below that zero line, so if it does move up close towards that zero line and then moves down, say if it came up here around 96.10 or even down to 96, then a swing to the downside might might be decent, but obviously what's your risk reward? And keep an eye on the MACD. You want to make sure that that if you're going to get into a swing trade, especially this far down, the MACD comes fairly close back to the zero line. Okay, dollar yen also been moving now to the downside, and we could have a new 4-hour downward trend in play very shortly as this crossover occurs. Trend follower changes to red if that occurs. Parabolic SAR still hasn't been taken out, so that's interesting. And even if it did go to the downside, I just don't see the trade there with support here, and I don't think the risk reward is going to be there. So no trade there. Euro yen, on the other hand, did play out nicely. This swing trade just goes to show that swing trades can be really, really good, especially when either no trend trade was given or the trend trade was really big. Wait for the swing trade. So this one is currently up, locked in just over 100 pips, and it's gone as high as 180 pips. Took out the first part here. And, it has changed to bidirectional, but I still hold a upward position on this. You can see here that this recent high was taken out. So we've had the open of the market. Let's see if it continues. But for now, with the strength of the euro, euro yen is still a good play. If it does fall back, then look for another swing. Watch this MACD and make sure it gets fairly close to that zero line. And if you get a nice swing to the upside, then that could be an opportunity. Of course, it needs to still be in bidirectional at least, but I'd say it would be because it was back here. So anywhere around here would be a nice swing to get. Pound Swiss a little bit weaker. Don't see a trade there, and pound has been just a lot more depressed. It hasn't been taking off like the euro. Aussie yen, I don't see a trade here either because of the flux of the Aussie. Kiwi yen, not interested in this, and you can see how flat it is. So hopefully you guys are getting an idea of what looks like a good trade and what doesn't. So CAD yen again. Maybe if you got a nice swing, it's getting close to decent swing territory. So it's already broken these highs. Maybe this could be a better option than certainly than the last couple that I went over: pound yen, Aussie yen, Kiwi yen. But at this stage, it needs to have a swing to happen and make that decent. Swiss yen's being carried along just like the euro yen. Of course, Swiss being the Swiss currency country within Europe, it's had a natural ride along on the strength of the euro. So maybe a swing to the upside, but this horse is already gone at this moment. If it came down to maybe here 1370, then there could be an opportunity. Okay, Euro Aussie. I hope some of you guys have took this one. We had a nice trend and a swing. Both went really well. And if you're still in this trade, congratulations. It's gone extremely well. Let's have a look. To its high, it's just under 200 pips. So if you got it even up to here or even up to here, that's 100 pips. And then, of course, another swing took it to this next point. If it's a correction and you see the Aussie weakening and the euro at least maintaining its strength, then this could be an opportunity to continue going because it's broken these highs. On the daily, you can see how more significant that is. So let's see how far I got to. All right, pretty much to this level, just a fraction under this high. So, I'm sure traders will be out there eyeing this level off, and if that resistance can be broken, because if it can be broken, the prize is up to this high, which is another 150 odd pips. So if we look at it on that basis, if we just drop down to the weekly, and then we see, really big opportunities, because if it breaks this level, then, there's another 400 odd pips to this high. So the institutions are always playing higher time frames, typically in their hold positions anyway, not in their day trading, but in the positions that they're holding. So you'll see on the weekly basis, it's looking nice and strong, and we've broken through this these highs over here. So again, coming back to the 4 hour, still opportunities in this one. Still holding a long view on it. 6 out of the 6 higher time frames are pointing up. If we drop down, say, to the 15-minute, there's no trade in it there, and it's going way too flat. You wouldn't want to take that even if it came valid, necessarily, because of the flatness there. So I think in this one, okay, so this is interesting. On the 1 hour, this is where I could see an opportunity, because if it fades down a little bit more and the risk ends up being, just below the gray moving average, so it may only be 20 or 30 pips with a decent 60, 70 pip to the high, and still has a way to go. I would see down to that zero line, maybe over here, and then we get a swing upward. That could be a good opportunity. So that's how I'd play it, either on the 4 hour and wait for a swing on the 4 hour. But in this case, it's moved really, really well, particularly on the last trading day last week. It gapped higher. So, I'd be tempted to look at it on a shorter time frame, like the 1 hour, if the opportunity presents itself. But still strong. And also remember to look for how the Aussie is going. If it's showing weakness, that's good for the Euro-Aussie trade. But also look at the Euro and see if it's at least still being supported. Okay, Pound Aussie. Again, the story of the pound has been, it's been behind the Euro-Aussie. So if it got a nice move to the upside and looked a bit stronger, at the moment it's just flatlining. But you can see this bar here, how high it was. I think that's that. So the market, it actually gapped higher, has come down. I mean, this could be really, really tempting, especially for the tiny risk, for the huge reward overall. And now you've got a reference point for traders as this recent high. So the object will be to, make it back to the high on that market gap. I mean, at this stage, it's still under pressure, but I'm saying on the 15-minute, this is where the market gapped upward. So, take that into mind. So in the 4 hour, it's about to change over. It's still moving down. And you can see here on the 1 hour, you really wouldn't want to touch it. But if this fakes now and then moves up, you can see it's really close to the zero line. And again, let's say hypothetically, it closed around 162.40. The risk is only about 20 pips. You've got about 60 pips to that recent high, where the market, well, it actually gapped to here, to this point, but it reached a high up to here. So, it could be a nice opportunity there. Okay, so Euro Kiwi, also a really good winning story from last week. I talked about it throughout the week, and you can see here, right back then we were targeting this point here, about 140 pips, and it actually looked like it was really high on the chart, and it was, but we've had such a big move, it broke that high and is now, 380 pips. So big high five for those of you that took this trade and held on to it. This was one of those trades that just followed that moving average all the way up, never really went against you. It was a great trade. What do you do from now? Well, similar story to the Euro Aussie. You want to wait for an opportunity. It'd be great if you saw weakness in the Kiwi in this case, and at least support in the euro. So, or better yet, rallying of the euro and a collapse of the Kiwi. That would be great for this trade because it would only make it stronger. So let's look at it on the daily. Wow, it's just been blazing away, and on the weekly, you can see here it's entering this really big consolidation zone. So, it may be a case that it's going to find some resistance at this level, and certainly on the shorter time frames, just like the Euro Aussie, I would be looking for corrections. So watch this MACD. Let's see if it slides back down to the zero line and a swing upward, you might be able to catch it back around here. In fact, that's exactly the level that would be great to, because of course that's the last recent highs and acted as resistance. So now it may end up acting as support. We'll see if it even drops. If you're holding onto this trade, then hang on to it and manage it as best as you can. If you're not in this trade, wait for another opportunity. Okay, pound Kiwi, again slower, but it's been upward too, and this is the one that I pointed out as well last week because of the weakness in Kiwi. So still, for now, holding an upward position on this. Aussie CAD, watch it. There could be a bidirectional market occurring with trend follow changing to green and the moving average. The crossover occurring. That might be an opportunity to reassess for an upward. At the moment, it's still under pressure, and the MACD is still under the zero line. So, having said that, the MACD, if the price swings down, we could get a new swing trade, and if that occurs, particularly on Aussie weakness, there's less than 20 pips for a stop, and so it's only about 1-to-1. Just a little bit bigger than that, but no trade in my mind for a short. But if it moves to the upside, then it might be interesting. Okay, Kiwi CAD, same thing here. It's really, the system is telling us it's 4 out of 6 high time frames are pointing down. So at the moment, there's no trade in it. Let's see what happens with price. EuroCAD, on the other hand, has been going upward, just alert, just on this last bar, actually. So very, very recent. It's broken these highs. So this one's looking good. It's a little far from the moving average crossover, which is here. So it's about 80 pips, but it's quite a bit. But on the other hand, it's showing momentum. And the return's about 130, 140. So not quite a 2 reward multiplier, but it's fairly decent. 4 out of 6 high time frames are pointing up, and the euro's been going fantastic. So it could be a good opportunity. And finally, pound CAD, trend followers just turned green. Moving averages are just about to cross over. Maybe they may not. So 4 out of 6 are high time frames are pointing down at the moment. It's looking very weak. The story of the pound has been that it's weak. So unless something happens fairly soon to change that, then I hold my position on the pound. Which, if the risk reward is there, then it could be an opportunity. And if there's a good movement in the pound, then it may be. But it has been really behind the euro. So if we start seeing the euro pound changing and the pound Swiss changing, that could be the first sign of a strengthening pound. Alrighty, so I'll leave it at that. I intended for a short market analysis, but I think it's been the longest ever. So there you go. I hope you've enjoyed it. Till next time, good trading, live well, and I'll see you soon.